It is the 24th of the 12th, 2024. It is Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to every single one of you watching out here. I hope you've had a fantastic year. I hope you've all got your feet up and are enjoying some time with the loved ones. But in the meantime, between time, there are very many F1 centric threads at which we owe it to ourselves to pull. It's kicking off still. Some people are talking about Checo Perez, saying that Red Bull are going to lose themselves millions of dollars because of their indecision earlier on this season. Lando Norris, we need to talk to some of his comments because we're rehashing ever so slightly. But some of them, I think, going into 2025 are more pertinent now more than ever. Marko, he's chimed in on Checo Perez and the reason, him being the reason why they lost the Constructors. And in the meantime, Yuki Tsunoda apparently was being courted by very many F1 teams. It's a sad story that, isn't it, from Yuki? So too Lewis Hamilton. We'll talk about that because Juan Pablo Montoya has had some things to say. Frederick Vasseur too. Montoya talking about the difference between Fernando Alonso and Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton as at the 24th of the 12th, 2024. So too, we'll talk about Max Verstappen, who's had some things to say about Checo Perez. Why a couple of cycles ago now at the Brazilian Grand Prix, when Checo Perez was competing stakes settings for 6th position, Maximilian Verstappen didn't cede the place, did he? What else would you expect? And so too, we'll talk about the stakes as far as Scuderia Ferrari are concerned in 2025, what they need to do. 99% of the car they said will be different. Suspension settings at the back completely revamped. It will be a paradigm shift. And what else would you expect? Sir Lewis Hamilton is coming to town. Let's talk about Checo Perez first. Walter, Merry Christmas, mate. You guys are legends. I apologise for the very erratic schedule, but you know what I mean? It's all over the shop at the moment, and we'll talk about the schedule over the Christmas period. Apparently, YouTube doesn't like Christmas. Apparently, audiences don't like watching YouTube over Christmas. But I digress. Let's talk about some Checo Perez, because it gets techier than techie things. People are now reporting that the cost to Red Bull of not sacking Checo Perez off, when indeed they had the opportunity, is about 14 million US dollars, depending on who you speak to. Some say 14 million euros, some say 40 million USD. And here's where it gets techie. You'll recall that around the summer break, the Monday morning of the summer break, Helmut Marko and Christian Horner had the opportunity. They sat around a table and had a meeting to discuss all and sundry, but not least Checo Perez's future at the Bulls that were red. They were set to sack him off then, due in no small part to his not insubstantial underperformance versus forecast. He'd been rubbish, yeeting it into his barrier every single second, even when the Charlie Mavidra family, the 51% owners of Red Bull GmbH, were there in attendance. He was a gazillion miles away from Maximilian Verstappen, getting roundly out-qualified by chaps who were driving Williams F1. Logan Sargent, I want to say he got out qualified this year alone 6 times. What are we doing? This makes no sense, ladies and gents. You can't be driving a Red Bull and get out qualified by Logan Sargent, can you? Not if you harbour aspirations to remain as a Red Bull racing driver. Why didn't they get rid of him then? Well, the rumour is still hectic. We've talked about it at this juncture a gazillion times. Not that Indas Cabron, the documentary came out. Indas Cabron documentary came out. The documentary that talked about Checo Perez's resilience, his ability to overcome adversity in real time. Liberty Media begged, in the name of the Mexican Grand Prix, for Red Bull to keep themselves some Checo Perez. At least keep him on to the 27th of October, right? Hundreds of thousands of Mexicans have bought tickets expecting to see their hero Checo Perez in attendance. Why then would you misrepresent that? You could not. If you're serious as a sporting endeavour, no sports entertainment entity, then of course you got to deliver on that promise. And Red Bull ceded, but now they have to take the hit. It was rumoured that it was going to be ambassadorial stuff, and potentially it still will. Christian Horner said what will happen with Checo Perez, he's not leaving the family. He'll be doing show runs next year. He'll be fritting up because, of course, they don't want to lose the sponsorship money, Telemex, Carlos Slim settings, nor do they want to lose the amount of merch that Checo Perez sells in North America too. So too the amount of energy drinks by dint of Checo Perez's name that they sell in North and South America. They can't lose that, nor will they want to. But that's notwithstanding. Well, that doesn't influence even, nor does it offset the 40 million that they had to pay him to exit out of that contract. Remember, reports are saying that he had in his contract performance clauses that said, as at the summer break, if he was more than 100 points and 5 places away from Maximilian Verstappen, his teammate driving the same car, then they could sack him off. That was the performance clause that would enabled, if effected, that they could have annulled and voided that contract with Checo Perez in real time, but they didn't do it. They were persuaded not to. Didn't look good. Optics, sacking off a driver in real time. Now, though, Helmut Marko's come out and spoken about it. Oh, and by the way, for context, important to set the table at this stage. You remember each and every single time around the summer break, it was, oh, we'll offer Checo Perez all the support he needs. In the first 5 races, he nailed 4 podiums. He was brilliant once upon a time. Checo Perez, well, we'll consider all our options. You know those ones. It was all kind of... Christian Horner would answer the questions around Checo Perez's underperformance in a way that was circumlocution settings, dancing around the question. Now, though, in stark contrast to the aforementioned answers from one Christian Horner, Helmut Marko and Christian Horner are drawing the knives, speaking honestly and in truth. It's techie. You're an absolute legend, Giovanni. Chiba is an architect. I made a design mistake and hoping to show leadership, I took financial responsibility of the error. That cost me 20,000, but CEO of the company then promote. Oh, Giovanni, it's getting techie. This is. I don't even know if I've got emotional bandwidth to address these things. Blimey, did you do the right thing, Giovanni? Well, you had to in the end, I suppose. I don't know. I hope there was limited liability involved in that equation. Go on then, Helmut Marko. I digress. Here's what Helmut Marko had to say on it now, and you will notice the tone change. Support Checo Perez. We hope that he does well. We're going to provide him with the infrastructure requisite to get his form back, et al. It was all that type of stuff earlier on in the season. No blame game, etc. We're Red Bull Racing. He was once upon a time a hero. Turkey 21, Abu Dhabi 21. Look now. You guys tell me whether you detect the tone change as much as I do. Helmut Marko, when asked about signing Max, okay, so that's a different thing. It's a shame, Helmut Marko says about Checo Perez. It hurts. The tip of the scales was the difference between Max and Checo in the World Championship, which was 282 points, while the difference among the other drivers of the competition was much smaller. This explains, says Helmut Marko, why we lost the Constructors' Championship. Mate, that's it. Of course it was. That was it. But before, when they were asked these questions even, they were dancing around them, weren't they? Keen that, well, no blame, no culpability. It was a series of different things, convergence in the final year of the Now, look at Helmut Marko coming out and saying, speaking the truth finally. Yes, it was Checo Perez's underperformance that ultimately cost us the Constructors. How do you know? Well, the delta between the other drivers who were competing, vying for a Constructors' Championship was so much smaller. 282 points was the difference between Max and Checo. I mean, do you know that all of the Checo Perez fans up in the chat previously to, oh, Cameron, what are you talking about? Checo Perez will be there in 2025. Well, how about now? Checo Perez will not be there. You were wrong, for you were dining, drinking from the fountain of unreason. Any fool could have seen that Checo Perez wasn't going to be there in 2025. He's more a liability than an asset going into 2025. We said already that there was more risk in keeping him then jetting him off. Flotsam and jetsam F1 for Pete's sake. Giovanni, you're a legend. Thanks for your channel over 2024. Looking forward to F1 next year and more of you, mate. Giovanni, I'm humbled, mate. You guys, again, I always say on this channel that this channel lives and breathes as a function of you guys just, you know what I mean? Fact checking me, calling me out on my bull feathers each and every single time. It's congratulations as well. No, you guys are legends. Go on, let me read out this from Giovanni. Cameron, don't know if I've lost the plot, but if you yeet it into a corner and cost the company money, you should be financially penalised as a driver. Yeah, but they don't do it, do they, Giovanni? I agree with you. That's how it should be. But there is a chasm between F1 theory and practice. Of course, it should be. I feel like once upon a time somebody did get charged. Oh no, somebody stacked it into the barrier a couple of years ago and then bought the engineers drinks or something. You know what I mean? Just as did Checo Perez buy everybody a round of tequila, as if somehow that would offset even partially the amount of money that they'd lost as far as their bonuses. 40% of their bonus is how much Checo Perez cost the guys and girls back at the Milton Keynes factory. He's gone. And you know what else? Whilst we're here, now, permission to go scorched earth for a second, just a brief second. I know it's Christmas tomorrow and I don't want to be Scrooge McDuck, but here we go. Checo Perez fans, let me look into the camera clear when I'm about to say this. I want to listen. It's been hard, right? We've been going back and forth, arguing. I've made a gazillion videos about Checo Perez saying why he's underperformance. By dint of it, he should be gonzo. Not 2025, sooner than that. And I maybe have been a bit harsh, a tad ungainly, even uncouth about the way in which I talk about Checo Perez. And for that, Checo Perez fans have been nailing me. He'll be there next year, Cameron. What do you want about Cameron? Always talking rubbish. Stop victimising, persecuting Checo Perez, they said. And you know what? Since it's Christmas Eve, Christmas Day tomorrow, now would be as good a time as any to say, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I'm going to take this time to apologise to absolutely nobody. Take 10 seats, Checo Perez fans. Where are you now? Sometimes truth, value and objectivity will set you free. All this time that you've been barking at the wrong tree, arguing that Checo Perez on merit should have himself a drive for 2025, that it's been sabotage PLC, and it hasn't been anything of the sort. Checo Perez now is gonzo, and the F1 community can draw a line under this chaos of a debacle that has been Checo Perez nepotism, financial resource over meritocracy over the past 12 to 24 months. Absolutely gonzo. Finished. Let's move on. Full stop. New paragraph. Christian Horner, by the way, before we go on, Christian Horner said similar, didn't it? You remember he said that we can't run a race with one leg, that ultimately we had to move on, that it was Checo Perez's decision to go and take a sabbatical, understand what he wants to do with his life going forward. Oh, the humanity. How do you like it, F1? Oh, actually, before I draw a line under this piece, I'm dotting around just for the bloody money. Financial resources ultimately held Checo Perez in that seat for longer than I think he deserved. But check this out. This is how much it cost Red Bull, because again, they had the opportunity to null and void the contract by dint of the performance clauses during the summer break. They did not do it, and those performance clauses lapsed. Ultimately, Checo Perez was owed 2 times $14 million, 28 as near as makes no difference, $30 million US over the next 2 years, because for the avoidance of that, they gave him a 2-year contract, not a 1-year extension, a 2-year. For Pete's sake, can you imagine? Checo Perez, the day that he signed that contract, needed to go and buy himself some lottery tickets, right? But here's how much he cost them. 20 million as far as the Constructors Championship. They finished third, not second, third. 14 million was his contract annually, and then 5 million in damages over the course of the 2024 season. What are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? And by the way, as if it gets worse, if we're talking about cost, there is a cost to be paid as far as Yuki Tsunoda's career, because we hear now over the past 24 hours that Alpine and Sauber, soon to become Audi, and Haas was sniffing around the Japanese, having conversations with Yuki Tsunoda's management at the beginning of 2024. They offered offered him long-term contracts, it's being reported. However, Red Bull, being the legends that they are, wanting to have their cake and eat it, refused to let Yuki Tsunoda go. Of course, what kept in there was the promise of the seat at the big team alongside Maximilian Verstappen. But now we realise that that was always a mirage. They don't fancy Yuki Tsunoda. For whatever the reason, they will promote anyone above him, much to the disenchantment of F1 fans all over the world, particularly, of course, Yuki Tsunoda fans who would argue that nailing Liam Lawson 6-zip in qualifying 4 of 5 races, as far as their head-to-head is concerned, is evidence sufficient to warrant that dude's promotion. But we know F1 is a funny thing, F1 is techie. Do you know what I mean? It is very techie. Correlation does not imply causation. Oh, and by the way, I need to talk about Lewis. Right after Checo's sign stopped working, he does that though. He did do that, Starley. I don't know whether it's right. Here's what used to happen with Checo. First 5 or 6 races suited his style, that understeery stuff. Do you know what I mean? He was brilliant as far as his ability to jump on the throttle on the combined exit of slow, minimum speed, medium duration turns. That Raskas as an example, he was brilliant. Hungary would go well around right. He was always very good around those type of tracks. So I don't know why Red Bull would always extend his contract post those tracks in the season and then be surprised when all of a sudden his performance will fall off a cliff. It's like, hang on, they did it once already and then his performance did one of these, as if somehow he became laissez-faire overnight, hence Helmut Marko's hate-filled, insightful statements once upon a time. Not understanding that it wasn't because Checo Perez all of a sudden just lost appetite. That wasn't the reason. That wasn't the how and the why. The how and the why was that early on, like Q1, there are all his tracks. All of the characteristics there suit his style, and he's always going to go well. Baku, Singapore, et al. He will always go well around those tracks, often or once upon a time beating Max Verstappen even, and that's all you need to know. Speaking of Max Verstappen and Jos Verstappen, father of Max, have come out and have spoken about Brazil a couple cycles ago. Do you remember the time when Max Verstappen had the opportunity, having wrapped up the Drivers' Championship, to do a favour for Checo Perez and cede the place when he was battling for the Vice Championship, second place in the championship? Max said, or father of Max said, that there was no way that was ever going to happen. What do you mean? Max Verstappen giving up a place to a teammate? Absolutely no chance, even if it is for 6th place. Now, I didn't like that at the time. I felt like that was the skullduggery of the highest order, especially when the championship's already wrapped up, right? But this is the way that Max Verstappen is wired. Max apparently, before the Brazilian Grand Prix, told Red Bull Racing, don't even ask me. Don't even come on the radio and ask me to give up that place. Not after Monaco, when Checo Perez yeeted it into the barrier deliberately with a view to sabotage my pole lap endeavour. No, don't even ask me, because I'm not moving out the way. Father of Max said the same thing about Piastri and Lando Norris Hungary settings. You remember when they pitted Lando, pulled the undercut, and then all of a sudden wanted to do the switcheroo team order settings. Instead of that, you didn't even give that to Max Verstappen. Don't even waste your breath asking Max Verstappen to seed. Seed. Spell it. Not seeding. That's Max Verstappen. He's looking to win every single race. And if he can't win every single race, definitely don't even ask him. Do not waste your breath. And that's techie, isn't it? Many fans around the world will say, well, that's not really the way that F1 should be done. Teammates, this is the dichotomy that so epitomises, characterises what F1 is, that it's an individual pursuit by dint of how good your team is and how good the car that they've given you is. It's techie, therefore. You need to play a team game and be an individual if indeed you want to win yourself a Drivers' Championship. But that's a game that Max Verstappen's not prepared to play. And I think Max Verstappen fans around the world love him for that. Look at the smile on my face. I don't hate it. Many moons ago when it was Michael, I didn't like it. But again, the lens through which we consume our F1 evolves over time. Does it not? By the way, There's all techier things. Hold on, let me read some of you guys in the chat, and I'm not even reading. 158 to 29. Chiba. Are you guys enjoying Christmas? Christmas is just. I cannot believe, by the way, that it's Christmas Day tomorrow. What? What is going on? This is bonkers. We're like 48 days away. Well, let's just call it 50 days away from the livery launch. As near as makes no difference. I'm telling you, it will go like that. Christmas Day will come and go tomorrow, and it will be F1 season again. So I'm telling you, it's just time is flying. Maybe again, this is a function of Cameron becoming an OAP, grey of beard, receding hairline, etc., etc. By the way, Juan Pablo Montoya, he's been saying everybody wants to say something about Lewis of late. And I don't know whether I like or hate it. As a content creator, we'll always talk to it, right? But I don't know. You almost feel like you just want to just leave. Can't you just leave Lewis Hamilton alone and let him get some rest? It's been a tough season. Qualifying's been really, really difficult. Has he managed to adapt to this set of rule and regulation, this tech spec of machinery, ground effect, super understeer on low, minimum speed, medium duration turns? Shouldn't we just leave him alone? Well, Juan Pablo Montoya says absolutely not, because he's chimed in and he says there's a big difference between Lewis and Fernando Alonso. They are of a similar age. Once upon a time, both of them were young, hungry, fire-breathing dragons. Indeed, you can't tell the story of one Checo Perez. Outlaw, you're an absolute legend. Wishing you happy holidays, mate. You're a legend. Merry Christmas, Andrew. Proper legendary settings. But you can't tell the story of Lewis and Fernando Alonso without articulating for the parallels between their career. Every once in a while, there will be a new young hungry dragon. It's one of the oldest truisms in F1 history, is it not? The fact that one hungry young lion will come out and see the old one out to pasture. 2005, the youngest, hungriest one was Alonso. The old lion was Michael Schumacher. Shortly thereafter, Lewis Hamilton, the young, hungriest one, seeing out Fernando Alonso. And shortly thereafter, 2021, it was Max Verstappen, the youngest, hungriest one. And then it was Lewis Hamilton being taken, in inverted commas, out to... Oh, you can't say that about Lewis, Cameron. But I digress. Here's what Juan Pablo Montoya, legend of Formula One, McLaren, Williams back in the day, BMW Williams, had to say about this circumstance. He says that the key difference between Lewis and Fernando is that when Lewis has the chance to win, he gets his claws out even, as he always has, but the day he doesn't, he has no desire to. You see that desire in Fernando. When he smells a good result, he pulls out his claws to the full. And when he's like that, he doesn't know. And the car is going well. He does a good job, but it's not the same. I think Juan Pablo's onto something here. Lewis Hamilton doesn't get out of bed for anything less than 25 points. Let's have it right. Let's be honest with this. That, ladies and gentlemen, is just the truth, is it not? You can see that in the way that Lewis drives. Every time, Spa-Francorchamps is a good example. Anytime that Mercedes was switched on, and in it, Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton could have confidence and felt like there was a whiff of a 25 points. All of a sudden, it becomes Lewis Hamilton of 2018, right? But when he's dilly-dallying around in 10th position or 12th or 15th, you remember Lewis saying over the radio when he finished 11th, did we even get a point in the championships for 11th? He doesn't know. He doesn't care. He's not invested in mediocrity. It doesn't tick his box. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't put hairs on his chest even. And I understand that at 39 years old, it makes sense. That sort of attitude is commensurate. However, if you're driving a Mercedes that, for want of a better turn of phrase even, hasn't been great, hasn't been a championship winning car for the longest time, right? Then surely you've got to try and do it on a rainy day in Sunderland, right? I don't know. Sometimes you would argue that the goatiest ones, that you measure their goatiness by their ability to bring the best out of their souls in the circumstances most adverse. Am I barking at the wrong tree? Chat, you tell me, because I don't know. I've always thought that Lewis Hamilton had it in himself. Singapore 2018 as a case in point, eh? That was difficult circumstances, didn't have the quickest car, and then goes and pulls it out the fire. I think he will need to tap into that next year when he joins Scuderia Ferrari, because it won't be easy. Oh, and by the way, Frederick Vasseur has talked about that. He said he's been saying a couple of things. There was a press conference that the media were invited to a couple of cycles ago. At that press conference, Fred talked about a load of things, but not least Lewis Hamilton, because that's where all the questions were coming. The tone of Frederick Vasseur's answers and rhetoric was that what they wouldn't be doing, Ferrari, Scuderia, is amending, adjusting for Lewis Hamilton. As a case in point, another one, Bono, nowhere to be seen. Bono will not be going across from Mercedes to Scuderia Ferrari. He will have the race engineer that Carlos Sainz was using. Why? Because this is Scuderia Ferrari. They bend the knee to no one. Okay, so is Lewis Hamilton's team, but in conjunction with Charles Leclerc. When asked about Lewis Hamilton's pace or lack thereof in qualifying, Frederick Vasseur says he's not worried. When do you get your points? You get your points on Sunday. And at Las Vegas, as an example, and Spa-Francorchamps, you can see that Lewis Hamilton has it in him still. Abu Dhabi too. Anytime he has the car underneath him and it's a race and he's had his Weetabix in the morning, Lewis Hamilton will Lewis Hamilton. He says he's not worried. Frederick Vasseur thinks that when he comes across, when he gets himself pastures anew, when he sees the red of the Tifosi and the yellow and the bloody black horse on the yellow background, that Lewis Hamilton will become who Lewis Hamilton has always been and will always be in the eyes of many. He says, for sure we'll know that we've got a lot of procedures to assimilate during these couple of days, but I think he's experienced enough to do this, and we'll have the advantage of simulators. He will be able to do a race simulation, a quali simulation, and fully prepare with the steering wheel and all particularities of the car. But honestly, I'm not worried about it. It is not the biggest challenge, and here's why this matters a lot. Merry Christmas, guys. Don't let them silence you with happy holidays in excellent smart. Fair play, Kim. I don't hate it. Settling for a second. Champ says, to be honest, 1-2 most of the time is fine. Simply better than kind of team order. To what are you referring, Champ 92? It's all kicking off in the chat and I can't keep track. Go on. Here's why it matters. If Lewis is who we think Lewis is, if he's a brilliant driver still but needs a couple of things, principal among those, the car underneath him, the confidence in the car, it being reliable and having the handling dynamic that suits his driving style. Lest we forget, Lewis has struggled, particularly in Sector 3 of Q3 in qualifying. He's super aggressive on the brakes, tight line settings each and every single time. Hence why on the combined exit from some of these turns, a la at Canada this year, that's where he falls victim of a cheeky snap oversteer, and the lap time in Q3 at the critical time in the paid session is all of a sudden gonzo. That's where Lewis Hamilton's mistakes have been happening. If Scuderia can give that chap a car that inspires confidence in Sir Lewis, if they can put the team around him, just like Bono did in Hammer Time, a team in which Lewis Hamilton is comfortable, a circumstance. Enzo Ferrari's house apparently has been offered out to him. Charles Leclerc can't be too happy about that, though. But if they can give the circumstances, if they can couch the proposition that is Scuderia Ferrari in those terms, then Lewis will be all right. Whether he'll beat Charles Leclerc, we can argue that between now and next season. It will get techie. He'll need to go some. But you can argue, it would be hard, it would be disingenuous of me to argue beyond reasonable doubt that Lewis Hamilton cannot go well. But again, under the umbrella heading of whether he'll win a championship in 2025, that would get techie. I would love it too. That would make me very, very happy as a Formula One fan. But listen, is that the most likely outcome? Fire-breathing, young, hungry lion in Charles Leclerc. You see why I did the parallels earlier? First, it was Alonso taking it from Schumacher. Before, it was Schumacher taking it from Senna. Shortly thereafter Alonso, it was Lewis Hamilton taking it from Alonso. And then it was Maximilian Verstappen taking it from Lewis. Now, next year, will the story arc be concerned with one Sir Lewis Hamilton getting his prime taken from him by one Charles Leclerc, young hungry lion. I'm cheesed off in real time. Charles Leclerc, aka modern day Jean Alesi. Why do I call him that? Because of the similarities between his aesthetic, his countenance, and the legend that was Jean Alesi. They are similar. They do the head lean into the apex of the turn, depending on whether it's a right or left-hander. Talented, super fast, quickest in absolute terms, but again, both fall foul of a cheeky error of the unforced variety. Those are the similarities. Therein lie the parallels and the symmetry between modern day Jean Alesi, aka Charles Leclerc, and the legend that is Jean. However, going into the 2025 season, where are those mistakes gone? Bloody Nora. That's not to say that he's not still making them, but he's making them far less. That was my challenge to Charles Leclerc, and he's heard me and us, and he's accepted them, and he's improved for them, filtrating out his mistakes of the unforced variety. Not quite down to zero, but as near as makes no difference. Do you know what I mean? And that worries me as a Lewis Hamilton fan, I'll be honest. If you like Ferrari, Charles Alesi, or Lewis, smash the like. Let's go, Benzi. Will it be a nightmare if Lewis is a disaster next year? I don't believe so, but it's not impossible. I don't think it'll be a nightmare. He'll have his time. Per friend of the channel, Peter Windsor, he will have his time. He will when he's had his Weetabix. You see it, right? But over the course of 24 races, which again, that's the lens through which I enjoy, ingest my Formula One. I want to see Lewis nail the 8th. It's always been a double or quits for me. On the back of 2021 and the chaos, like I'm not a newfangled Lewis Hamilton fan. You know what I mean? I've started to understand that there are common denominators between Colt LH. The vast majority of Colt / Team LH are new fans, right? 2007 settings. I would almost categorize fans by pre and post 2007. You couldn't talk to Mama Cameron about anything in F1. I give you this straight. Like, let me give you this cheeky anecdote. I was talking to Mama Cameron the other day. I was like, Mom, I've been watching F1 like 40 years now, as near as makes no difference. Like, you know what I mean? Since I was born, I've been. My mum was like, you didn't watch what in the early 90s? You didn't watch F1 then? I was like, what? Again, Lewis Hamilton fans telling me who I am, what I did and didn't do. You having a laugh? Like, what are we doing? It's crazy. Right, guys, you guys have been legends. I'm going to run. There's other news that, oh, bloody no. Let me tell you about Haas very quickly. I saw a Haas stat that said that this year they've accrued more points in the Constructors than they had done in 23 and 22 combined. Haas are on the up and up. It's chaos. I argued even in real time that Gunther Steiner, getting rid of him was an absolute mistake. That he brought to, what's his name, Gene Haas, owner of Team Haas, a cheeky 30 million per annum sponsorship deal. But in return for that, Gunther Steiner wanted equity in the team. Wanted to become Toto Wolff et al. Something like that. A team principal come equity stakeholder. Gene Haas being the stingy team principal that he is, not wanting to spend money, throw money at a problem with a view to solve it. Said, "No, you're all right, mate. Take your leave." So Gunther Steiner was like, "Mate, I will take my leave and I'll take this 30 million sponsorship deal with me as well." Do you know what I mean? And I thought that was a big mistake. That commerciality and sponsorship, money ultimately is the bottom line in any sporting endeavour, because you can't go racing if you don't have funds nor finance. So I thought it was a mistake getting rid of Gunther or allowing him to walk out that door. But now, Io Komatsu, legend of Renault back in the day, the black and gold one, just like John Player special settings. Io Komatsu has proven that sometimes you just need a good sound racing mind. And Haas all of a sudden are doing one of these. Next year they have Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon. Let's see how those two get on together. Because of course, the Esteban Ocon house is where young careers go to die, right? Like, what do we did? Like, I mean, you're not going to get any special privileges from Esteban Ocon. Please see as your Exhibit A, Monaco this year, the collision between Gasly and Esteban. He's techie than techie things. He's Esteban. Max Verstappen pushing him at Brazil when he tried to unlap himself. He's just got that thing. Moth to a flame. is what overtakes look like to Esteban Ocon. If a driver can only be good with one of the best cars, everyone is better with one of the best cars. It's also about getting the most out of an inferior. I agree with you, Outlaw. In fact, I would contend, and this is where my relationship with Lewis does one of these right, and this is where my relationship with Team LH also does one of these. I want to see, if Lewis is who I believe him to be, I wanted to see Lewis do more Abu Dhabis and do more like be Spa-Francorchamps like 8 times out of 10 rather than 3 or 4 times out of 10, because he's always been that good in my eyes. But again, he's gone on sabbatical, hasn't he? Lewis, bless him, 39, soon to be 40 years old. Only 3 drivers in history have ever won the championship, the Drivers' Championship, at the age that Lewis Hamilton will be by the time he dons those red overalls with the yellow badge and the black horse. Brabham in 66. Juan Manuel Fangio in 57. That's when he won his last one. And then 50 for Giuseppe Farina. The stacks, the odds even are stacked against Lewis Hamilton. That's not to say that he can't be the exception that proves the rule. Do you know what I mean? Mr. Unprecedented, because he's done it before. All the records that he's broke, most wins, most poles, all that stuff. Maybe he's got it in it to do. Listen, I can't wait. It's going to be techie. Right, guys, I'm going to run. You guys have been legends. Schedule over the Christmas period. I'm gonna close up shop for a couple. I'm gonna try and get videos out. I might try and front load a couple so that a couple golden oldies so that we can keep watching. But brand new content in the next couple of days, I promise. Because there's news and the stuff that we need to get to talking to. Delivery launch is coming soon, 18th of February. 19th of February is when we see Lewis Hamilton the first time in those red overalls at Maranello. Oh, the humanity. It's going to get chaotic. You guys have been legends. Listen, if you're watching, listening, have yourself a fantastic Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, etc. I am infinitely grateful to each and every single one of you for the exponential growth of this channel. I was talking with another content creator earlier on in the week, and I was reminded of how lucky I am to have this platform, A, and then B, that there are other platforms, other content creators out there that would kill literally to get to this, to get to where we are now. So there's a sense of gratitude that I owe to you guys for how my name's the name above the door, but this community, this fan channel, whatever you want to call it, whatever nomenclature you want to give this thing that we and you are part of, then I owe all of that. Look at me getting emotional. Christmas, yeah. All of this, it belongs to you. It's by dint, no function of all your hard work, turning up to the bloody cheeky impromptu lives, enduring my tardiness, which needs to get better for 2025, by the way. Self-critique, Cameron, must improve. It's all you guys, and I'm grateful. My name is the one above the door, but you guys are the ones who contribute and discuss, and do you know what I mean? That's what the channel, the inception of this channel, the origin story of it even, is that arguing with mates about Formula One. Oh, Seb's better than Lewis. No, he's not. What are you talking about? Lewis Hamilton would destroy Seb Vettel if he can get his hands on him in an equal machine. No, he's not. Look how good Seb is. Seb just puts it on pole and then you don't see him. Look how he qualified. Those are the conversations that we were having back in the day, 2010 through 2014. And now we're here talking about the same things, just with different names. Yesteryear, it was Lewis and Seb. Now it feels like it's Max and Lewis in their stead. But it's the same conversations, and I love it. I'm here for it. I remember back in the day at school when it felt like we were... felt like talking about F1 was a top shelf conversation. Nobody understood the language, and so I feel privileged. I say all that to say this. I feel privileged that we have this platform where we can come and engage the sport and each other in a way that's disrespectfully respectful. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be banterous and it's got to be hard. We will disagree, but always, for the most part, respectful, and I owe that to each and every single one of you. So all that to say this. Have yourselves a fantastic Christmas. Hug somebody that you love. Get your feet up. Celebrate the festive period if you're not celebrating Christmas. And I will see each and every single one of you soon. Between now and next time, as always, remember to look but never stare.